overwhelmed with exhaustion, but if your exhaustion seems to never end, it could be chronic fatigue syndrome. Joining us now is interventional cardiologist Dr. Christopher Davis with tips to combat chronic fatigue. Welcome to Bloom, Doctor.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So what exactly is chronic fatigue syndrome?
Well, chronic fatigue syndrome is a term that has, for the longest time, has no real true diagnostic criteria, but essentially it means that people are unusually tired to the point where it's not a normal "I'm tired after I come home from work." They can't get out of the bed. They have aches and pains and they can't focus. They have brain fog. Those are some of the main symptoms that really comprise this chronic fatigue syndrome. And it's something that occurs and it's on a daily basis. You wake up after a 8-hour sleep and you still feel unrested. And so there are lots of different things that contribute to it, but that's essentially how we make that diagnosis of chronic fatigue syndrome, often related to a lot of viral illnesses, toxins, and things of that nature.
So you kind of talked us through some of the signs and symptoms of chronic fatigue syndrome. What triggers it? You touched on it just a little bit. You said it could be like a virus, illness, toxins.
Right. So typically, things like the viruses, Lyme disease, mold toxicity, environmental exposures to all of the organopesticides and things in our environment. But some of the most common things are these infections that sometimes can linger on, and people don't even know they have Lyme disease. For example, you may have contracted when you were a young kid, and a lot of times the diagnosis can be missed, and these symptoms go on, and the symptoms are so vague that a lot of times doctors don't we miss that diagnosis because you're just tired. And that's such a common complaint when you go to the doctor's office, that a lot of times you don't think about going down that route of investigating for less common causes like mold toxicity and things of that nature. So those are some of the more common ones I see in my practice, that often after years people will come in and we have to think outside of the box to look for those things.
So in addition to finding a doctor like yourself who's skilled and thinks outside of the box, are there any lifestyle changes that we can make to improve the wellness of a person with chronic fatigue syndrome?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I think is really important, when we start to talk about chronic fatigue syndrome, there are cells in our bodies called mitochondria. And those mitochondria, I like to tell my patients that they are the battery packs. Those are the cells that provide energy for us all. And those mitochondria are very important, and they require certain micronutrients to function efficiently. And some of those things may be amino acids like carnitine and CoQ10 and all of the B vitamins. And so really making sure you're eating nutritious food. We always talk about nutrition, but that nutrition is important for a reason. Your body needs those cofactors, i.e. what I just mentioned, to have those mitochondria function appropriately. If the mitochondria, the battery packs, don't function normally, that's when chronic fatigue arises. That's when lots of other issues with oxidative stress, getting rusty inside, is what I like to tell my patients. As we get older, we get rusty inside. But what happens? Those mitochondria are not working normally. Same thing with chronic fatigue syndrome, but to an even a greater extent. You're getting really rusty because those mitochondria are not working normally. And so you need those antioxidants.
Doctor, let me ask you about you personally. You're a cardiologist, and yet you seem like you have a vast knowledge of this kind of niche diagnosis. Tell me about the link.
Well, all of my colleagues, they call me a unicorn cardiologist. I actually have a cardiology practice. I'm an interventional cardiologist, which means putting in stents, and I did that for about 10 years, and I started to realize that there was some of the things that I just mentioned. I started to realize that there were things that we were missing that we really weren't addressing fully. And so there is a field of medicine called functional medicine, where we start to look at underlying root causes of disease processes. And once I got started down that pathway, particularly in cardiology, why do people develop coronary artery disease, blockages in the arteries? Well, we were taught that it's all cholesterol, but it's cholesterol is certainly a very important part, but cholesterol is only a small part of what truly causes heart disease. Some of those same things that I mentioned, heavy metals and pesticides, those are the things that cause oxidative stress and changes the cholesterol in that body. So essentially what happened with me is I started to see there was a lot more that I could offer my patients. And so I decided to take a separate route with my cardiology practice, and I have a health and wellness practice as well. And I deal with people with Lyme disease and all of those things that I talked about. But it just it opened up into that. I didn't intend for that, but it's been great to start to learn all these things and be able to really, truly help my patients.
Well, Dr. Davis, we need more unicorn doctors like yourself. Thank you so much for joining us on Bloom today.
That's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, and for more information on Dr. Davis, just head to WFLA.com/Bloom. Don't go away. We'll be right back.